Welcome back to the Lineout Lab. My name is Peter O'Donnell. In this video, I'm going to do a bit of a defence preview on the Lions Australia series, which kicks off this weekend. If you're new to the channel, please click that like and subscribe button to help the channel grow. Thanks. Let's get into it. Okay, so a couple of talking points that I'm going to focus on, specifically around defence. And I'm not going to talk too much about generic defence, but I will just make one point first before getting into the red zone and looking at Maul and front peels, which we've seen come up on this series so far. So I suppose the first thing is if we look at the Brumbies here on attack against the Lions around the middle of the pitch and the speed at which they move. The Lions are on a mirror defence and they get caught in this example with speed and a throw jump example, excuse me. And if we watch it again, the interesting is that there's very little kind of delay time. It's an equal spaces option, and it is off the hooker. So the front lifter is waiting for the hooker to cue or the thrower to cue and or initiate his movement, and then they go off him. So it makes it very difficult to defend these anyway. But it's the speed to move, and once they kind of get to the mark, there's very little hesitation. The hooker just goes, pulls the trigger, and it's very hard to defend. But as you can see, Lions are on a mirror defence. You've got the three jumpers in the middle. They're all just watching here to see what they're going to do. And look, like this isn't unusual. A lot of teams defend with a mirror, and I'm only looking at five mans obviously in this example. But I think with any sort of speed of movement, it's very, very difficult to defend. And likewise, the Lions have had a good bit of success with their lineout so far, with speed and with speed of movement. So, but that's just something to kind of keep an eye on in terms of how will they defend off five mans in particular. Against Australia. So the next thing that I want to look at is in the red zone and how they've generally defended. So what I'd like you to do is keep an eye on John McCarthy here, number 2, and generally the tactic that they're looking to do is to try and get into that front seam and twist and pull it and break it up as much as possible. Now early on, that caused a few problems for them, in that you can get a little bit exposed on the open side or through the soft centre, through the middle of the maul, but it can be very effective and you have a very good chance of turning the ball over as well if you do it really well. It can be challenging, it can be very effective, but I'm seeing now the downside potentially in this clip here. So this was it was almost a near try. The backlifter, I think, got pinged for blocking, which meant it wasn't a try in the end. But we can see here they're trying to twist and pull it, break it up, and then we see a guy comes through the middle and he does get it down and score a try, but it's the backlifter's ping in the end. But you can see here Scott Cummins with the big right arm is trying to get into that front seam. The Warriors have obviously seen and watched what they've done, and you can see Blue 1 does a really good job of getting his head underneath the arm and makes it a long and hard for him to get this arm, break up that front seam. And if you can get into that seam, it can make it easier to split to twist it as well. So but the Warriors do a very good job then. Look, obviously the backlifter's done a very good job too, and that's why he's penalised. But I think the idea is that with this twist and pull, it does leave you potentially exposed through the middle, but there's risk reward with that. And we get a nice little look at it here as well from the spider angle. So check out how they're trying to get into that front seam. They'll drive up on the outside, so the first guy on the line is going to drive up on the outside. Next man is trying to get into that front seam, and the other guys here are trying to pull the back lifter excuse me, and jumper to open up, and the next two men are trying to hit in then. So it can it can potentially, as I say, leave you exposed, and Blue 7 nearly does it. Well, he does a great job to score there, but unfortunately they get pinged. So then we see another example of their Maul defence in terms of how they look to compete in the red zone against the Brumbies. So generally they might look to compete in the middle back and then give you the front. And the key thing here is the transition and how they hit. And I think the Brumbies have a very good Maul, to be fair. But they've generally tried to kind of pincer them in and squeeze them in like a lot of teams do here, and try and compress them from the angles, and then a bit of weight in the middle as well. So it can be, look, a lot of teams do this. It can the Brumbies still get a bit of go forward here, so it'll be interesting to see what Australia do in that sense. Will they try and win the ball in the middle back, which is going to be challenging because a player like Itoje can be a real nuisance in terms of this sort of field position. Whether he doesn't compete, whether he doesn't win the ball, whether he wins the ball, excuse me, he can be a real nuisance in this example, or in this area, I should say. And I wonder, is that something which maybe the Aussies might target to go after? Because obviously one of the challenges if you compete is you can get done for height, and that's something which would be could leave them also quite exposed. But that's not unusual. I think actually the Lions D has actually been quite good at times, and their attack also. So again, this is just a talking point. What will they do? Will they give that the middle area, the middle back? Will they compete? Will they change it up? Will they do twist and pull? And stay down? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do in that sense. Okay, the next thing that I want to look at is I want you to keep your eye on Tyg Byrne here at the back, the second last man. And what they generally do is they're actually using him to kind of come around in case the attack goes to some sort of front peel option, and he's a bit of extra insurance, so to speak. So we'll watch him again. So here he is. So just a quick moment before we continue on with the video. You may or may not be aware that I run a number of courses and programs. If you're interested in doing a self-paced course, please click the link in the description below, or get in contact for more details. So here he is. So often this is how they've actually defended on a number of occasions. So you'll actually, some teams do this as well, where he'll actually come around as a potentially defend front peel threat, or maybe any sort of shift drive on the open side or the blind side threat, and then he'll look to fit in where he's needed. So I'll just show you this again. So wondering with this, will it potentially leave the Lions exposed for some sort of wrap play? So if he goes, will the Aussies do some sort of breakout play and try and target this last man here? Maybe that might be something that we might see, whether it's the inside space or whether it's the outside space, the seam. It'd be interesting to see. I think that might be something we might see Joe Schmidt come up with a nice little play in the red zone. So that might be something that I think could be quite interesting to look at this weekend. The next thing then is just generally, there's no peel or anything like this, but you can see here we've got Alex Mitchell, the scrum half here, and then the blindside wing here. So this is a maul that kind of gets broken up a bit, but what I want to show you is just a player like Alex Mitchell is defending in the channel here, and he's not afraid to get in amongst it. He's needed to kind of do a job there, which he does. But what we've seen is some teams have still gone after the front or the blind channel, so to speak. So this is kind of typical sort of six-man sort of scenario, and what we see is when there's any sort of, let's say, movement, that's what I've spoken about there, you might see the 5 kind of coming into that kind of to help the scrum half, and the number 1 for any sort of front peels or shift drives or down the blind side or anything like that, and the 8 is kind of, the scrum half is hitting in where the ball is won, and he kind of floats along between, let's say, 10 to 15 meters. He's kind of floating and moving around a bit, and then he's kind of hitting at the ball. So it'll be interesting to see what if anything changed in that sense. But a lot of teams, or a number of teams, have tried to go after that front channel, that front space, which we see here with the Brumbies. They went for a Maul first line out of the game in the red zone, and then next line they go for this front peel. So we'll have a look at it again. So they set up 6+1. A nice little variation from the Brumbies as well. I think they've always been a really creative team. It's quick enough that it kind of beats the second last man there. You can see here number 6, Ollie Chesham. He's actually looking like he's going to hit that. So they've kind of changed it up a little bit, but I don't know if he would have got there anyway. But the point is they've gone after the scrum half, and that's, I suppose, the interesting thing. And here we have another example against the Waratahs. You can see Alex Mitchell there at the front of the line out. Here he is here, and they do a nice little front peel. And they try and, you can see they try and get after him. And actually, if you look at Tyg Byrne again, the blue scrum cap, he's coming around to fulfill that role. And they still look to kind of exploit, or try and exploit the 9 in this example. But you know, they don't score, and Alex Mitchell out of the 9 does a job to try and defend it, and very difficult when you look at a big boy like this lad here, any sort of big lad like this. He gets amongst it, but yeah, teams are still looking to potentially go after that space. So interesting from from the Lions in that perspective. So there we are. There's a number of, I guess, interesting talking points. How will the Lions defend? Will they go with a mirror defence? Will we see any changes in the red zone in terms of how they defend? Will we see the Aussies kind of go after that twist and pull? Will we see the Aussies go after a real dynamic drive, soft centre, and try and win the ball, and get the Lions to compete, and maybe get in behind that space of Maro Itoje? I think that'll be quite interesting. Yeah, so it's all setting up for a really interesting, tough battle, and no doubt the Lions are going to really go after the Aussies and vice versa. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.